Hello and welcome to Musicians Edition. I'm Evan here on the guitar. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you about moving between chords on the guitar while we maintain that constant rhythm and a strumming pattern consistently between these two chords. So as our way to get into this, we're going to talk about chord pairs. Chord pairs are easy chords to move between because they share at least one common note. So you have one finger that's going to stay planted, kind of like an anchor point for us, while the other fingers will move around it. So having that one finger stay consistent makes it an easier transition between the chords so we can better move between it, we can move quicker and maintain our strumming pattern easier. This follows my recent videos on rhythm and strumming patterns on the guitar. If that is something that's new to you that you are learning, I do recommend you check those out first. If that's something you're pretty familiar with, you can go ahead and continue with this one as we'll talk about that some more here. So we will look at 4 chords in this video. Some I have talked about with one that's going to be new. We're going to look at E minor, G, C, and D7. And so what we really have is 2 pairs here, 2 of those chord pairs. So G and E minor are a chord pair that are pretty easy to move between. C and D7 are a chord pair that are easy to move between as well too. So we're going to pair those 2 together and then put both of these pairs together so we get a 4 chord loop that we're going to be able to play. We're going to build up our skills in knowing how to move between these and come up with a pretty complex strumming pattern to do with them all at the end here. So our first pairing is G and E minor. This is a chord pair because they do share one common note, and that's going to be a common note that one finger is going to stay planted on. So looking at G, we're going to be playing the 3rd fret of low E. We're going to be playing the 3rd fret of high E, and we're going to be playing the 2nd fret of the A string. So that's going to be a ring finger on the low E 3rd fret, middle finger on the A string 2nd fret, and our pinky goes on the high E 3rd fret. So we have three fingers fretted right here to play a G chord. And now this is a chord pairing with E because we have one finger that's going to stay in the same spot, and that is our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. That one's not going to move between these, but we will lift up our ring and our pinky, and we're going to move that ring finger down to the 2nd fret of the D string, right below the middle finger there. So altogether we're going to be playing these 2 right there, with our middle on top and our ring finger below it, and that's E minor. So back to G, we keep that middle finger planted, ring finger goes up to 3, pinky goes down to 3, that 3rd fret of playing the low E and the high E there. So we have G, we have our anchor point of that middle finger staying in the same spot while our ring moves down to the 2nd fret, and that is our chord pair. So easier to do instead of just having all fingers doing something different. We have that pivot point right here of that middle finger staying on the 2nd fret. So one more time, we have G to E minor. So whenever you are trying to put chords together and transition between them, it's good to just work on building that muscle memory with just open hits at whatever pace you can do them at. And when you're ready, we can come up with something more difficult. We can work on a constant rhythm, but right now just work on building your muscle memory and knowing your pivot point and knowing where those fingers are gonna move to. And when you feel more comfortable with that, we can turn on our metronome. We can work on building up our strumming patterns here and see how complex we can make them, how quick we can play them so we can move between these a bit more fluidly while we play a strumming pattern. So you'll see a visual for each of these strumming patterns so you can play it along with me and see what that's going to look like. So we're going to be following that 1, 2, 3, 4, a 4/4 time signature where we're going to have 4 beats in between. You're going to see a plus in between each number, so that gives us room for another strum in between. So really we can count it as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and as our patterns do get more complex. But starting it off, we can just do a 1, 2, 3, 4 nice and slow. And so you're going to hear my metronome here. I'm going to be playing it at 70 BPM to start off nice and slow as we get into this. So 1, 2, 3, 4 with G on the 1, E on the next one. So 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4 to E, 2, 3, 4. Get an idea of when you need to pick up your fingers so you can move between them here. and try to have it be later and later so you can have that sound ring out as long as you can. Okay, and there's that. And so now what we want to do is put in more strums in between these so we have less time to move between these chords and have it sound like more of a real strumming pattern. So what we'll do is just add one at a time here. So we're going to start off with just putting it on the 3 here instead of just the 1. We'll play 1 and 3, just down strums here. So this is what that's going to look like. So we're going to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and keep moving back and forth like that. So I'll put my metronome back on. Want to make sure we're staying in time. 1, 2, here we go. And that's the idea there. So we're going to go ahead and add some more here. If you're still struggling with that one, of course, take your time with it. We're going to go ahead and add them now on each beat. So instead of just 1 and 3, we'll play on 1, 2, 3, 4, and move between each of these. So we're having less and less time to move between these chords as we're getting more comfortable with it. So we're going to be playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So let's go ahead and add our metronome to it. Okay, 1, 2, here we go. And there you have it. So that is 1 on every beat. We're going to go ahead and add one more pattern into this. We're going to play some of those 8th notes. We're going to add in some up strums into this. So make sure you do practice this until you are comfortable with it. You can always slow this down slower than what I'm playing it at as well too, and build up with the time. So if this is already too fast for you, go ahead and slow your metronome down or just play it slowly and then come back and play it at the same time that I'm playing it at. But we'll add one more strumming pattern and that'll be it for this one. And we're going to add a couple of those 8th notes. So here's what that's going to look like. So we've got a down on the 1, we've got a down on the 2, immediately followed by an up on the 2 and then a down again on the 3. So that is this. Okay, so that's down, down, up, down, down, up. And that's our full 4 count. So what we're looking at here is we have a down on the 1, down on the 2, up on the 2 and, down on the 3, down on the 4, up on the 4 and. So all of our down strums still maintain on the 1, 2, 3, 4. We're playing an up strum on the 2 and an up strum on the 4 and. So if you want to think you can figure this out, you can go ahead and try it. I'll go ahead and show you what it's going to be like as well too here. But we have down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. If you're still struggling with strumming patterns, just to get used to a new strumming pattern, I usually just maintain it on the same chord over and over again until I feel comfortable with it. And then I work on changing between them after that. So again, just staying on G. That's how that's going to go out for this whole part here. We're just going to add that switch to E. So all together with that switch, it's going to be... So let's add our metronome to this. You can always slow this down slower than what I'm doing it as well here too, just to get used to it. But here's what it's going to sound like with our metronome at 70. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, and so on and so on. 1, 2, here we go. And there we have it. So don't feel discouraged if this is too difficult for you. We're playing eighth notes. We're playing it not super, super slow while we move between these two chords. So we have chord pairs that's supposed to be easy to move between, but if it's still difficult for you, stick with those quarter notes for now as you get more comfortable with it, or just slow it down with these eighth notes with those up strums that we did just play here until you feel more comfortable playing it at the speed that I just played it there. But that is G to E minor, our first chord pair. We're gonna go through the same process with our second chord pair, and then we're gonna put them all together for a 4-chord loop here. So our second chord pair is C and D7. C and D7 are a chord pair because they again share a note in common, where we're gonna have to keep one note in the same spot while the rest move. So we get our anchor or our pivot point between them here. And so if we look at C, a pretty common chord, what we're gonna play is our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. We're gonna play our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. Then we're gonna come down and play our index finger on the 1st fret right here. Okay, so for this one, we do not play low E. That's gonna have an X next to it, meaning we do not touch it with our pick. So be wary of that. We're only gonna strum the 5 strings here and not all 6, because we want C right here to be our root note. When we play the 3rd fret on the A string, we get C. We want that to be the root note for our chord, so we don't wanna play the low E. So make sure you get used to that if that is something new for you. Just strumming these 5 here. Okay, from C, we're gonna go to D7. This chord pair is gonna have our index finger here not move. That's our anchor, our pivot point. We're gonna have our other fingers move, and for D7, we're gonna be playing. We're gonna put our middle finger on the 2nd fret right above it on the string above it. We're gonna put our ring finger on the 2nd fret on the string right below it. So, and on this one, we're also not gonna be playing the A string. We only play 4 strings for D7 because we want the D string to be our root note, so we can play a D chord. So with these high 4 strings, we're gonna strum just like that. So all together with our fretting, we're gonna play 2nd fret, 1st fret, 2nd fret, and leave this D string open. So we play right there for a D7. And if playing these high 4 strings only is not something you're used to, go ahead and practice that. I'm gonna try to do it without looking as well too, so you can focus on moving your fingers on this end. So do that until you feel comfortable playing it. And so we're gonna put this pairing together here. So again, it's our index finger on the 1st fret here that is not gonna move while we have our other fingers moving. So from C, we're putting our ring finger on that 3rd fret, our middle finger on that 2nd fret, right there. Nice open hits, nice and slow as we move our middle and our ring fingers for that D7. So nice and slow, don't need to put a metronome to it just so you can get the practice down. Another reminder, as we play this, C, we play 5 strings. After we move to D7, we only play 4 strings. So another little something to keep in mind as we move between these chords. Get your muscle memory down, remember your movements. And we'll add our metronome to this, starting with those open hits on the 1. So we'll keep that same tempo of 70. Okay, just the open hits on the 1 here. We're still getting comfortable with these. 1, 2, here we go. So as we play this, we want to make sure we keep our fingers held down as long as we can so we can let that chord ring out for as long as we can before we have to make that switch. So that's what we want to work on with these open hits. quickly moving between it so you can let that chord ring out for as long as we need it to. Because we are going to make quick switches when we do add those more complex strumming patterns, so it's something to get used to here. And our next step is the same as before. We're going to add a strum on the third beat there. So we're going to be playing 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. Let's add our metronome to it. 1, 2, here we go. And there we go. So we're going to add our next strumming into this. So let's strum on every beat, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, remember, we're going to strum 5 strings for C and only 4 for that D7. So it gets harder and harder to do as we might be looking back and forth. So make sure that's something you're getting more comfortable with. 1, 2, here we go. All right, and we are almost there. We've got one more pattern to add on this. We're going to throw in those eighth notes on those up strums. Same pattern we do with our last chord pair, so hopefully you are familiar with it. Here it is one more time, playing on C. We'll play C consistently just to get the idea of this again. So we're doing down, down, up, down, down, up on loop here. That's it right there. So we're going to practice doing that while we move between our 2 chords. Let's hear our metronome. 1, down, up, down, down, up, down. Here we go. 1, 2, here we go. There it is. All right, so this one is especially tough because now we're throwing the aspect of not playing all the strings. So that C to the D7 is a bit more difficult than the G to E minor, but it gives us something new to work on. So I think it's good to practice that. So now we're gonna go ahead and work on pairing all of these together. All right, so we have G and E minor. And now we're gonna move that into C and D7. To make a 4-chord loop here. So we can start that off with just those open hits on the 1, and we don't have to put a metronome to it or anything. Let's just get used to it. We're good with G into E minor, but now let's figure out how we're gonna move that to C. So we're gonna lift up everything here, unfortunately, and just get ready for that transition. Just something we're gonna have to get our fingers used to, because there's no chord pair here, there's no pivot point or anchor of things that stay the same. We just gotta lift up everything and see how quickly we can move them to the next one. So that E minor to C transition is something you might wanna practice by itself. Back to E minor. And get that muscle memory down of how quickly you can move it and what those finger movements are gonna look like. And then our next hard one is gonna be from D7 back to G. So we need to play D7. We have to get our fingers all the way back to G, which there's no easy way to do it. Just pick them all up, move them around back to G. And we do that over again. So one more time all the way through. There you go. So we're gonna do this nice and slow again. Let's do our metronome on 70 once again. Just those open hits on the 1 in time here. 1, 2, here we go. Lift up as early as you need to make these transitions on time and work on cutting in that gap. So you can ring them out for as long as you can. Here we go. There it is. So our next step is the same as before. We're gonna add an extra strum onto that 3. So we're gonna be playing that 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can work on moving with more strums in there so we have less time to move it. So let's go ahead and do that. One, 2, here we go. All right, that's what that one's gonna sound like. If you need more time to work on those transitions, by all means, go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go ahead to the next one so you can see what that's gonna look like, where we are gonna add those strums on every beat, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So strums on every beat, we're gonna be playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and working on moving between them while maintaining that constant rhythm. You can always slow this down slower than what I'm doing if that movement between the E to the C and the D7 to the G is too hard for you, but here's what that's gonna sound like. 1, 2, here we go. Are your hands getting tired yet? We got one more to do. And it's gonna be adding in those up strums on the 8th notes, playing on those ands in between the 4 and the 2 and here. This is where it's gonna get difficult, but I'll make it a little bit easier for us because already playing on the 4 and moving between them is difficult enough. Here's what we're gonna do. Between the G and the E minor and the C and the D7 are chord pairs. We'll play it the same way we have been playing it. We're gonna be playing the down, down, up, down, down, up, down. We'll play that the same, but in between these ones that are not chord pairs that are harder, we'll skip that last down and just end it on the down strum on the 4. So between E minor and C, the E minor is not going to play that last up strum on the 4 and D7 to D7 back to G. The D7 we're not going to play the up strum on that 4 and as well too, because it's hard with just that 8th note gap. If you do get to a point where you are really comfortable with it, by all means go ahead and add it in there. But just for simplicity's sake, so you can get through this without getting too discouraged, let's just put that up strum on the and on the 4 and between the G and E minor, and the C and D7 are 2 chord pairs. So it'll make more sense once you hear me play it. What we're gonna do is this. So that's that. What it is on the G, we play that down, down, up, down, down, up to the E, down, down, up, down, down. Skip that last up and let's give us extra time to go to C, down, down, up, down, down, up to D7, down, up, down, down, skip that last step again, so we have extra time to go back to G. So one more time, we'll play that nice and slow all the way through here so you can hear it. Without the metronome, then we'll throw that in afterwards. There it is. So let's go ahead and play that all together. Let's hear how it sounds with our metronome too, and we'll finish this one off. 1, 2, here we go. And you made it through. So that is it for our video on transitions between chords and our introduction into chord pairs, chords that are easier to move between because we do have that pivot point where we keep one finger on the same spot. So you can see G to E minor should have been an easier transition for you versus E minor to C, because those are not chord pairs. Those share nothing in common with our as far as our fingers are concerned. We have to pick up all of our fingers and move them to different spots. Those are traditionally harder to move between. So I hope G to E minor was easier for you to do, as well as C to D7 was easier for you to do, as opposed to just those random chords where you have to pick up everything and move them around. So that's why this is good practice in transitioning between chords, maintaining that constant strumming pattern and rhythm. But we throw in ones that were not chord pairs here so you can get that 4-chord loop of the practice of lifting everything up and moving them along. So of course, work on playing with that metronome so you can maintain a constant rhythm, work on more complex and different strumming patterns as you transition between chords so you can get better and better at playing and play at different tempos, start off slow and work your way higher and higher. And you can usually progress with the way that I did if you're starting with new chord pairings or you're trying to learn a song and those chord transitions are difficult. Start it with something simple, just those open hits. Add in more and more strums along the way so you can get more comfortable with it until you end up with that final strumming pattern, usually starting off slowly and build it up to play faster and faster. So everything that we just did in this video, you can always increase the tempo past what I did here if you are doing very good with this. And so I hope this was good practice for you. Have fun playing, and we'll see you next time.